Welcome to the Enneagram with Chelsea and Nicole. This is a positively deviant culture podcast anchored in the Enneagram. Today, we're thinking about the core brilliance of the type 4. Before we get too deep into it, we just have a quick reminder.
Every episode, I want to remind listeners that this isn't a prescriptive, fixed tool, and that our conversations are designed to work with the material and the ideas in an exploratory way. As long as I've been working with the Enneagram, my knowledge and application continues to evolve. And that's what we're here to do, to keep learning together. The core brilliance I have felt is a missing link or missing piece in a lot of what's being taught or written in terms of what are the most essential elements of each type that are truly brilliant and express something that's almost otherworldly, that's deeply tied to the existential design and the job of each type in the world. And so that's why we choose to highlight that here in those terms and be more exclusively focused on all of the most amazing elements and less, into all of the ways that we miss the mark. That's in our later episodes.
And the core brilliance is also tied if you're listening to this and wondering, could I be a type 4? If you're trying to locate your type, the core brilliance is a great way to start. And if you know you're not a 4, it's also what we can learn from the type 4 or how we can lean into the 4 within us.
The other thing that's important to remember is that we designed these to be listened to back. The core brilliance, the points of movement, and then the paradoxes are the three most essential elements of what compose each type. So type fours sit at the center of creation. Fours metaphorically are the portals to other worlds, other experiences that we couldn't access. The rest of us couldn't access without them. And they're the place of creation in the sense that they can create something from nothing. And and this is exceptional in the sense of this isn't normal. Like most of us can't do this, right? So the ability to create and then to create something from nothing, the ability to portal to different worlds, to different spaces, to different landscapes, to different universes, different planets, different kinds of places that we wouldn't be able to access without a four. So this concept of portal is really powerful. And ultimately fours are teaching us about beauty and specifically beyond what we would think is beautiful. They're teaching us about beauty and horror, the sacred and the profane, the novel and the banal, and the spaces in between. So, in terms of beauty, it's the more hidden aspects that are connected to truth. And this is significant because it's absolutely not obvious. It's places that most humans do not see and maybe even avoid, and definitely misunderstand, misinterpret. And mainly because they're uncomfortable places that don't seem like they contain meaning or beauty or some kind of exceptional, mysterious reality. And this is the work that fours are up to, and why most fours tend to be artistic in some way. It's because this work is very poetic, it's very nonlinear. It's this strange ability to go to the depths of something, to the bottom of the ocean, and to scoop up what might be there in all of its weirdness and all of its like unknown and the mystery and piecing all that together. The core job is to express beauty and to have the ability to see what is unseen. I would say that fours have the most powerful gaze. In other words, if a four is looking at something, their ability to see what is in front of them is incredibly accurate, almost like X ray vision. And it's not limited to the ability to see into somebody's soul. It's also the ability to see what others don't see in the sense of what is beautiful, what is misunderstood, what is hidden, all of these qualities that are very atypical and unusual. That's their gift. The source of the gaze is this ability to have sight. And they also have, as a result of this sight, it's the same source of ability to have a great self awareness. This incredible, out of all of us, they have the most natural self awareness. That is really useful because knowing oneself is often how we understand human nature and often how we understand others, the core parts of our own humanity. If we don't understand those, as many humans don't, and we often have to grow and learn these things, fours most naturally have access to their own humanity and to the realities of themselves and the inner workings. And that is the same source of being able to see, and the sight that they have in terms of truth and beauty and horror and how everything comes from a similar place. Fours are able to sit in the darkness without fear. We talked about this a little bit of the fives. Like fives are able to sit in darkness and hold something as an observer. Fours are able to sit in the darkness and hold something as a participant. And so there's a nuance here. Both fours and fives have this capacity to sit in the scariest human places, but there's a nuance in how they approach it, where fives are first observing and exploring reality and then how humanity fits into that. Fours are first exploring and understanding humanity and how reality is a part of humanity. So there's an inversion there that's different and it's worth mentioning. But this concept of fours being able to sit in the deepest, darkest places without fear, another metaphor to describe it is the ocean, where there's a container. So fours' ultimate place of unique power is their capacity. And it's the capacity to hold all things, all of these different fishes, right? All of these different realities that are existing in the ocean. Well, fours are actually the ocean itself. They are the containers of all the different kinds of life experiences and what's teeming in the ocean. They are that space where they're holding all of these things. And this is really freaking unique, in terms of their capacity to be spacious and the vastness and the quality of the unknown and the mystery. I think that the ocean really captures this, which is why I use it as a metaphor. And also, the ocean is often a metaphor for the emotions, the place of human emotions, the uncontrollable and the mysterious, and the powerful place of the ocean. And unlike fives, fives usually use the metaphor of space, like all of the planets and in the universes and outer space. So they're two different landscapes and they're often doing similar things but in a different way. But fours, this is really powerful in terms of their capacity is different than all other humans. The ability to contain and hold all things simultaneously, the horror and the beauty, and to be able to surface and work inside these places as a participant, not just an observer.
One of the earlier things that you mentioned about, we always say any type can be an amazing artist, musician, but fours, especially, I've noticed with some music that I've heard, certain artists, it makes me wonder, are they fours? Because their ability to tap into this deep emotional place and create art out of it, it actually becomes a portal for the rest of us to get exposure to the way that they're seeing and feeling these deep emotional places. And it creates beauty. When you talk about just pure creation and creating something beautiful, even out of something that may not at first glance appear to be beautiful, it's almost a transforming power that they have to take something and produce beauty where there wasn't beauty before.
It's exactly right. Like I said earlier, is that ability that they have to create something from nothing. That's incredibly and entirely unique and not normal. And also, as you were saying, which I think is often misunderstood, is that where fours are seeing beauty is often where the majority of humanity is seeing the grotesque. And that is four's job in the world, is to expose what true beauty is, that it's not the surface. It's not what we see on the surface. Fours are the ones that are revealing and exposing the layers and depths of beauty and how beauty is tied to truth. That without an experience and understanding of what is truly beautiful, we cannot understand truth. And so there's this connection between truth and beauty as also lots of inversions. These kind of inversions that are often rejected as having any kind of beauty. Fours teach us that, no, 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 we're not seeing correctly, we're not seeing accurately, and how they're connected and married. And I think ultimately, I would say that fours sit at the place of poetry. And it doesn't mean, again, that any type can be an actual poet and we can all write and create poetry. But what I'm saying is that poetry, in the sense of what poetry represents, the inversions, the liminality, the places in between, the things that are unclear, mysterious, the expressions that are not what you would expect and that cause you to think about things differently, that cause you to experience things differently and to see things differently, that expand your understanding of your own humanity and expand your understanding of truth and beauty.
When you think about vision and sight and being able to encompass what so often in our culture we want to skip over because it's not based in facts and data. It makes me think a lot about what fours can bring to the business world. You've mentioned to me sitting with people in pain. Is that tapping into something four to be able to sit in an ugly place and hold that space?
When fours are really integrated to their two self, the ability to sit with other people's pain is a two quality. The ability to sit with your own pain is more of a four quality. And you can see this in twos. Twos are far more interested in sacrificing for other and seeing other and meeting other. And fours are very much more about self. And they're both absolutely important and necessary.
I want to go to that place of self awareness because how is it, do you believe, that fours are coming to this excellence in terms of self awareness? Is it their vision, this x ray vision? Is it their expansiveness in the willingness to go to these different places? You mentioned depth as well. Like, what is it that you think brings about this gift of deep self awareness?
I think that it stems from the source of the giftedness of sight, that fours can see what others cannot. And it's that a core gift of I don't know where that comes from. You know what I mean? Like, when we go through all of these brilliances for each type, it's the consistency of our gifts are there. Where they ultimately come from, I don't know. But I think it's a core gift of sight. And I would say that it is this natural connection to their own human experiences in terms of their emotional states and their ability to sit with those emotional states and trace them. And that requires a certain capacity. And that's why I would say that fours ultimately have this gift of capacity, the ability to hold everything at the same time. Most humans cannot hold much, never mind multiples, right? And so, because fours can hold it and then they have the attention, that combination allows them to map and trace and emerge with enormous amount of self-awareness. Now, later we'll get to what does that mean? Sometimes not much at all, but it is a powerful gift because it is the place to start. If you don't know, there's not much to work with, right? Like there's nothing to work with if you don't have the knowledge and awareness. So fours absolutely have this knowledge and awareness that is outstanding. And as a result, they have this similar kind of knowledge and awareness and sight around others. This capacity allows them to continually sit with the pain and discomfort of the human experience. And that also surfaces all kinds of new information and knowledge and expansiveness. And that is typically the material that is sourcing a lot of their art, like most humans, no matter what type we are, right? It's our own inner worlds and inner experiences that can source our creative energy. And then they're able to portal, and they don't just portal for others, but they portal for themselves. So most of us can't portal. If we can, it's our four self that's doing that. And so fours can portal themselves. And in that way, there's this exponential layering of experiences and knowledge because they can go places and access worlds and information and experiences that most humans struggle to access.
As a final point on the core brilliance, we like to discuss the core fears and core drives, which are underpinning most of the behaviors, most of how we express our personalities.
Yeah, the core fear for fours is having no identity or no personal significance. And fours are very concerned about having a beautiful and unique and meaningful identity, that who they are and everything that they are is able to be expressed in the world around them and then seen. And so the core fear, as we always say, is the opposite, which is of having no unique, significant identity, that who they are makes no difference and doesn't amount to anything meaningful. That's the core fear. Another point of brilliance for fours is they are like the archaeologists of humanity. They are deep diggers into everything, but particularly into the history of humanity. And they have an ability to even be like our historians. Oftentimes, they're kind of like the family historians where they remember the past and what happened and what occurred. And that is significant because they are relating the past to the present and they're able to connect the roots of our humanity and the core places of where things began in order to trace the depths of our human experience. Lineage and source and this archaeologist way of being adds a as a dimension to fours that I think is connected to their core brilliance of capacity and exposing beauty and truth in terms of the human experience.
It makes me think too that when you talk about them with the sense of reality and this vision that brings forth the reality, that the reality is not just in the present, to all these other worlds and this kind of portaling nature, as well as to the past. And so I think that's a really great point.
Yes, and another thing I can mention too is that fours are the second most complex type. So the two most complex types of the Enneagram are sixes and fours. And fours, it's because of the depth of emotional complexity and the layers and how mysterious and unknown these parts of humanity are, and how fours navigate, contain, see, express. That becomes a very complicated tricky place, which is essentially tied to their brilliance.
Well, in thinking about complexity, we're going to add a few layers of complexity in our next episode as we unpack the movements of the type 4. Keep listening and give us a like and a follow on social for more episode notifications.